you're listening to this. We are live streaming right now. This is Fred and Elle Talk Shop.
It's margarita time somewhere.
It's the holiday season, so apparently we're all just gonna have a beverage and get dressed up. We are Fred and Elle Designs. I am Elle.
Oh, you got it right this time.
I never do. I was practicing before we got on here. This is Fred, and we are going to talk shop tonight about. I cannot believe it took us so long to actually talk about this. Is cosplay. We're actually talking about the play component of cosplay. And the reason why is because we recently participated in this crazy cool event out in New Mexico where we had to stay in character for 4 days straight.
Yeah, that was rough.
It was a lot.
It was a lot.
It was a lot. Like we've been cosplayers for how long?
8 years.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
8 years.
There you go. I'm trying to get Fred to learn how to project so that you guys can actually hear us.
I have to enunciate my words.
We are enunciating. Look at us enunciating.
I have to channel my inner Patrick Stewart.
There you go. Which is actually really funny because, like, I used to be in community theater and did a lot of stuff on stage. Yet, of the two of us, I am the most uncomfortable with actually cosplaying.
I don't want to talk about that yet.
No?
No.
What do you want to talk about?
Henry Cavill. We
Oh
are yes, we are cosplayers, but we are primarily 40k cosplayers.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
The fact that GW has finally given a license to somebody to do a live action sequence is kind of phenomenal. The fact that it's going to somebody who is as big a 40k nerd as we are actually gives me hope that it will be reasonably close.
Yeah.
It is never going to be as broad or as expansive as some people want. It is never going to be as grimdark as some people want.
Neither grim nor dark enough.
You know, it's the neckbeards and the gatekeepers will come pouring out of the woodwork hating on it. I will be happy if it's 85-90%. As long as there isn't a space marine making out with a sister of battle, I will be okay.
I think that's fair. I have to tell you, like, I am pretty sure that we have talked about Henry Cavill doing something 40k related probably every day for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
Maybe more so. Like, it just comes up in conversation all the time.
And I actually believe I have something of a controversial take on him as well.
Do tell.
Most people believe that he should play either Rowboat Girly Man.
That's not nice.
Not nice. Or the Emperor. Okay. Yeah. I completely disagree.
Can I interject here real quick? I'm not going to agree or disagree with you on this, but I do want to give our listeners and our viewers out here a little bit of background. Fred has been immersed in the Games Workshop Warhammer world
since 1987.
That was a long time ago, kids. There are only a handful of people I've ever met that really know as much about the lore as Fred does. So when he talks about this stuff, he does kind of come from a position that he's thoroughly thought it through. So please continue, sir.
Okay. Everybody just sort of like leaps onto the Emperor because the Emperor is the titular head of the Empire and they want him in a position of like super importance. The only problem I have with that is, one, if you do the Horus heresy, the Emperor's not in it much.
Yeah.
Realistically. And neither is Rabuti Gilliman. Okay. And as characters, they're actually kind of dull. Particularly the Emperor. They don't go much. You can't really talk about his background because nobody knows it. You don't even know his name. He's just the Emperor. He fights at the beginning and then hands everything off, and then he kind of turns up at the end and almost dies.
Yeah.
He doesn't even really take part in the battle of the siege of the Imperial Palace. He's downstairs making stuff, which Magnus breaks.
Yeah.
So in terms of an actor's role, I think it's kind of dull.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he would be featured enough.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think he'd make a great Horus.
Ooh, go on.
Well, I mean, you listen to the books, you look through the lore, he wasn't always a rabid traitor. There is a reason that the Emperor trusted Horus to take over his position and run the Great Crusade.
Well, and in fairness, treason depends on what side of the table you're sitting on, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was supposedly charming, an effective diplomat, a fantastic general. He was able to negotiate all of the politics between all of the different primarchs and the different factions of the imperial forces. So he could start off as Superman,
Yeah.
and then as the series progressed, you get an evil version of The Witcher,
Ooh.
where it's like dark and he's become bitter and he feels that he was lied to and he's having to break oaths that were absolutely solemn to him. That's, I think, a role that an actor could sink their teeth into. The descent from the right hand man of God, effectively, even though the imperial forces did not view the emperor as a god, but to watch him become doubtful, bitter, and then finally betray his oaths and then launch an assault onto to destroy everything that he had worked to produce.
That's fair.
That, I think, that would be a more interesting role for him to take.
Very rich role. Now, this is also why Fred was perfect to immerse himself for 4 days in Warhammer 40k cosplay, because
I was an Imperial commander. That's easy. You just be grumpy.
Well,
and I'm old and already grumpy.
That fits very squarely within your personality type. But it also, so it got me thinking a little bit about like the whole concept of cosplay, the play component of it. And I thought that's why we want to have this conversation, because Fred and I going into this event, and I'll give you a little bit of background on what this was all about, so that all of our listeners and viewers here have an understanding of what we're about to discuss. Fred fully ready to do this. He's like, oh, I can totally be an Imperial commander. I know the lore. I haven't played Warhammer in like 15 years. Like, I do Warhammer cosplay. I'm fascinated by the lore. I used to have an army. I used to play an army, but it's been a minute.
We can only have one expensive 40k hobby at a time.
Thank you. And creating the crazy stuff that we do, that's taken all of the money, right? So we really weren't able, like, I just couldn't commit to it. I still like it, but I wasn't up to snuff on it. So I was a little bit more concerned than Fred going into this fully immersive event. So I want to give a little bit of background on this event that we're talking about. So we were invited.
Can I interject one small point before you start about?
Does the group consent? Are we? Yes, they say it's fine.
Okay. Yeah. I believe that some of your reticence didn't just come from a lack of faith in yourself, but in the way that you had been treated previously in your involvement with the hobby. I mean, we would not have met if it wasn't for the fact that you were, for want of a better word, rejected from the hobby at your local gaming store.
So, and I don't want to go too much off topic. We did promise that we were going to talk about cosplay.
But I think this is, but it's linked to why you were so reluctant to actually take the position.
So I do think there's, it's not just in this particular fandom where there can be some toxicity. Like people who are, video gamers, women in video gaming, they get, a lot of grief. I got a lot of grief being a Warhammer 40k player back when I was younger, to the point where it almost like just pushed me out of it completely, which is why I think maybe I was drawn to doing 40k cosplay, because I loved the world. I loved 40k, but it meant that I didn't have to go into a gaming store and have somebody immediately quiz me on, I even in 40k cosplay, I have been slammed with obscure questions about my cosplay.
Yeah.
And it's just nuts to me. And now here's what's interesting. This is what kind of brings it back to the cosplay. Whereas I get very cringy about the performance side of it, and you like it a lot more than I do, is
true.
When I'm at a con in a cosplay and somebody comes over to me and asks like a really specific question, trying to like test me to see if I know enough. Like when somebody asks, like, if you know the songs from the band, like that's a type of crap that I get.
Yeah.
I can say, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. And I can just walk away. Whereas this event that we were asked to come and do in New Mexico, I wasn't going to be able to walk away. Like, it was my job for those 4 days to fully immerse myself in this role and make sure, importantly, that the people who paid good money and gave their time got the performance and the narrative that they wanted.
Yeah.
And I will say this, the people that we met at the Grand Narrative
fantastic.
Were amazing. And if any of you are on here or listening to this, I want to thank you so much for being so wonderful about I even know my first day I completely messed up on something, and the person I was talking to was just super cool about it. And at the end, I really felt like we were a faction. By the way, the Xenos beat your ass. We took you down.
Nope.
But
like I said, there are no defeats, only victories and holding actions.
There's only victories and holding actions. But I mean, I will tell you, it completely changed. Like, I have seen changes in the fandom. Just in the 15 years that I've been in it, it's just a much more inviting community. And it's not everybody.
Oh no, it still has its dark depths full of terrible, terrible people.
But every fandom does. So it was just really, really cool to get to meet everybody and stay in character for 4 days. So here's my hot take on cosplay in general. I find sometimes people who stay in character at a con the entire time to sometimes be a little bit cringy and annoying.
Deadpools.
Yeah, Deadpools can grate on my nerves.
They tend to have toned down themselves a little bit since the release of the original movie.
When I ask people about their costume and they only respond to me in their character, that drives me bonkers. But I've changed my tone. I've changed my mind because the cosplay world is about what you love about it, right? Like, yep. I love making costumes. I love making obscure costumes. I like putting detail into it. A lot of people like completely immersing themselves in their character and being that character for 3 or 4 days. Having now done that and having so much fun doing it, I get it now.
I mean, we were fortunate that we had an extraordinarily receptive audience to perform for.
They were so awesome.
But I think the play aspect of it, you can bust it down. There are, I believe, just general con appearances.
Yep.
You're then going to have masquerades, which are competitions or little presentations that are done around skits.
Right.
They are generally, you get 90 seconds, 2 minutes to do something. And they're usually groups or at least 2 people, okay? Because it's kind of hard to do a performance by yourself.
No, I've seen it done, and it's super cool, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you actually have the voice and the ability to do a decent monologue, awesome. And then you've actually got the standard costume contest aspects of it. I think we need to cover those 3.
Sure. Okay. Which one do you want to tackle first?
I mean, because the New Mexico thing is in a box on its own all the way away. That's, I mean, it was great. I had a whale of a time. And if we have time, I think we should tell some of the stories about performing, which were fantastic. But at the beginning, there's the staying in character at conventions. So I said there are some people who love it.
Yeah.
There are some people who will completely do it. There are some people who will break it a little bit if you've got a specific question about construction, or they'll give you a nod and say, I'm going to be at this bar.
Yeah, I'll talk to you later.
I'll talk to you later. I want to do this. But I do think that it becomes very important to get that aspect of it right if it involves kids.
Oh, that's a really good point. So when like a kid comes up to you and you are that character to them.
Think about that Christmas stuff that we did, where we were all in cosplay at the Christmas event where they were holding out parents.
Yeah, so there's an event in Jacksonville every year. I don't remember what it's called. Basically, it's for kids that would probably not get a Christmas otherwise. They take over a convention center downtown, and companies just give thousands of dollars to buy toys, and they invite cosplayers out to act in character to just make the day magical for kids. That's a day you stay in character. Yeah. What was the last one you did?
Batman. I was in the armor Batman.
That's right. I've done Ursula.
You've done Ursula.
And I never broke character because when those little girls came up to me and were like, "You're my favorite," I'm like, "You're mine!" Like, it was amazing.
Yeah, whereas I was just looking down at little kids and growling at them, which they thought was hilarious.
They did. They absolutely did. But yeah, it's interesting because, like, again, I recognize how good other people can do it, but I've always been so afraid. I have to perform like Monday through Friday. Like that's my job, is to be on and think on my feet and have to respond to people. So when I do like cosplay stuff, it's weekend stuff, I like to just shut my brain off. So Fred comes to me all the time, is like, okay, when we do this event, I'm going to walk on the stage and do this monologue, and then I want you to come in and do this thing. And my face just goes like, I don't want to do that. And he's like, Elle, you were in theater. It's like, yeah, I did backstage shit. I came out and like introduced people. Like, I didn't act.
I mean, but I have always loved that aspect of it. I mean, when I think back, I mean, mist of time.
100,000 years ago.
Fuck off. We were banging rocks together. Cosplay Melee.
Oh, that was
on my episode. And I know from other people that I was actually the only one that did a performance at the end of the runway.
Right.
And they cut it because I was the only one that did
that's interesting. I didn't know that. How did I not know that?
Because I think they probably felt that it would have been weird for only one person to do it, whereas everybody else, you just kind of like strut the runway like a model.
Right. Yeah. See, that's my gig when I do cosplay. But I've completely changed my tone now. I think I'm going to try to, I'm going to try to like monologue and stuff. Point of note, I apparently cannot memorize more than 2 lines of anything anymore. I cannot memorize a monologue. I tried. It was bad.
But once you got into the swing of it and you found your stride, you were very good at taking your natural ability to talk and then stringing the relevant sentences from the lore into it and just behaving in a way that was characteristic. So you were basically making it up as you went along, but doing it right.
What was your character's name again at the narrative? What were you?
Lord Militant Castigane.
You were Castigane, that's right. So, yeah, Fred was born to play that character. Like, he did not have to try it on. Like, when he put on the uniform and was doing his morning faction things, I was like, this is way more natural to him than him having to like go to the grocery store on Tuesday. Like,
people.
He was perfect. I had to try a little bit harder, but can I tell you, once I discovered Starblade's voice, I literally couldn't get out of it. It was like, it did remind me a little bit of like Katharine Hepburn.
Loved you.
Well, some of them are kindly with us right now, and thank you for the sweet compliments. It was so much fun.
But I don't think you would have been able to relax and do as brilliant a job as you did without with the exceptions and the encouragement of the lads who were there and ladies.
Yes, that was a big game changer for me. Fun fact for all of you that were there, for the 2 weeks leading up to it, I read you
were mainlining lore like a heroin addict.
I was literally freebasing books and like reading everything I could find.
And every time she had a question, she'd be like, "What about this? What about that? What about this?
What about that?" And he's like, "Dude, have you not been listening to anything I've been saying for the last 30 years?"
He's like, "No, not really."
I was like going back and rereading the codexes, like everything, because I was so afraid I was going to disappoint. Like, I was so afraid that I was not going to do this well. So I was literally like just reading as much as I could. So when I got there and just started like listening in on all the conversations and how positive everyone was about it.
Yeah.
Oh, it completely changed everything. It was so positive.
I mean, and it was hard.
Mentally exhausting.
Physically exhausting as well, to be honest.
We're very old, just FYI.
No, but most people don't realise that for us to be at a faction briefing, well, they were like 8:30, 9 o'clock?
9 o'clock.
But that means that we have to get up at dumb o'clock in the morning, shower, get something to eat, normally something garbage because none of the restaurants are open by the time we were up. And then it's 2 hours of prepping your kit, makeup, prosthetics, all. I mean, especially you had to work really hard. You were changing the shape of your eyebrows, all of the prosthetics. You gave yourself chemical burns on your face.
I did. I gave myself chemical burns. Apparently, you're not supposed to use Prozac on your face for 4 days straight. Yeah. Like that's not healthy. So
well, it wasn't the Prozac. It was constantly rubbing 99% isopropyl alcohol into your skin to get it off.
That's true. So, bit of advice: if you are going to cosplay and perform, maybe don't do it for 4 13-hour days straight. Like maybe just sprinkle in some break time. So to give everybody a little bit of background, because I don't think I've fully explained what this event was.
You didn't.
So the Grand Narrative was an event put on by Games Workshop. So it was a sanctioned 40K event. And by the way, shout out to the coordinators, Zach and Ryan, who were just amazing in putting this together. People from all over the country could sign up to come out and play in this grand narrative. So basically they were writing the story as people were playing this tabletop war game.
And those games and the results and the people's names are actually going to be written into 40K lore. It's going to become canon.
Yeah, so like the Sabrain system where we were all supposed to be is actually going to be part of the lore moving forward.
I want a miniature made of me.
Oh my God. Okay, start carving one then. Like, get on it. What was so cool though is that, when you showed up, you were part of a faction. So depending on like what army you planned on playing, you were in your own little battle group. So you guys would all move through this event together. And what was crazy cool is that every room where they were playing games were themed to a particular world, planet. So there was like a jungle system. There was an ice planet. There was
a
desert area. And they did everything. They were like, it smelled like those places. They turned the temperature down in the ice planet or up.
Which was a mistake.
Not great. But what was amazing, it was fully immersive. So our job as one of the warlord commanders, I was the head of the alien races, the Xenos.
Interlopers.
The interlopers. You were the head of the
Imperial forces.
And our buddy Zach was the head of chaos. And we would give faction briefs in the morning in character to tell everyone in our faction what their tasks were for the day, like a normal battle. Today, we're going to take out their leadership, or we're going to take out their psychers because that's what's going to cripple them. And then as we move forward, the event coordinators, our buddy Zach, who is, again, amazing, in between all of his stuff would go back there and continue writing the narrative. Like he would write
He was calculating the results of the actual missions, plus the actual faction objectives.
Yes, thank you.
But then a space alt dropped into the system, and they had kill teams operating. They had Imperium, the airplane one.
The airplane one.
Aeronautos, Imperium. I don't friggin' remember. Anyway, and all of those results are being calculated, which gave you different benefits the following day. I mean, the Imperium had Penitent Spain, the Space Hulk, for 2 days. So that on day 3, they were getting free off-planet supports for every game.
So it was truly, the narrative was being written as the players were playing.
But stuff that people in your faction that were doing in a different room was going to affect you the following day.
Yeah, so nothing was predetermined. It was being written in the moment, which meant that when things would change, we as the warlord commanders would come in and be like, okay, what's the next set of priorities for this next group? And then we would go into the rooms, give the briefings that were loosely written because God bless him, he was like writing them in the moment. But he's like, listen, just go in and tell them this. So every time that we were talking to our groups, we were in character, we were cosplaying as those warlords, moving the narrative forward, which again was super, super fun, but mentally and physically draining.
Yeah, because we had to walk around the tables, we had to give encouragement, we were handing out impromptu mission updates, different little bonuses, or I think that, or little things that would hinder your player's opponent. You know, it's like a stepping in. You know, and it was fabulous fun.
And I will tell you, it changed my perception of the play and performance part of cosplaying. Because again, I have performed, or excuse me, I have competed in cosplay competitions, and my performance is always rancid because I just get really uncomfortable doing it. I think the most I ever performed was out of panic when I was the Gretchen.
Oh my god! And you were so good as Gubbins.
But it was because you were like falling out of your costume, and I was like clomping in there in my little Gretchen feet, in like
giant Gretchen feet, which was just the fact that you were kicking your legs up and down and running around waving a spanner. Oh my god! I mean, I didn't get to see that because I was too busy dying trying to hold the orc together. But I've seen the videos afterwards, and I just pee myself laughing every time I see them.
But it's brilliant. Like if you had told me, it's like, hey, Elle, when I go out there as the orc, I want you to run ahead and like hit things with the spanner, I'd be like, oh, yeah, no, that I'm not going. It's not going to happen. So my perception of the cosplay side of the world, I haven't, like, poor Fred tells me he's going to do stuff, and I'm like, oh, don't do that. I don't have to watch it, do I? Like, I get very cringy. But after doing this, I've kind of changed my perception of it.
But that also leads us to the other two aspects of it, which is masquerades and actual contests.
Right.
I mean, a masquerade is really designed to incorporate cos and play. It is a performance.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, I don't know if Sophie is watching because I've seen her do it. She sang and really well and changed the words to I am sitting over Mary. I don't know what that is, but anyway.
The Modern Major
General song. Who sings that?
I don't.
You know shit.
I don't know this. I've had wine. I don't remember.
But from what I understand, it is far more common in Europe and Asia than it is over here.
Okay.
And I remember talking to after Toronto.
Okay.
Talking to Lindsay.
Yeah. One of the judges.
And she actually said that it's now getting to the point where when you get up to the upper levels, when you're competing against, you know, the top tier people in the country, that what's going to be presented to you is perfect.
Oh,
it's a perfect dress. It's a perfect suit of armor. Yep. It's a perfect this. It's a perfect that. It's a perfect this. And you may have an unconscious bias towards a particular type of craftsmanship because of what you do personally. The best judges can put that aside and also have a great broad set of knowledge to be able to judge properly. But when they're all perfect, what can differentiate you from the person next to you?
Right.
And presentation and your stage presence, I think a lot of the time is what clinches it for you. If you walk on like a stick and do and walk off, and the next perfect costume comes off and floats on and spins in the dress and actually does a bow and actually engages a little bit with the crowd, you've won.
As compared to the other one. So it's the differentiator when two competitors are equal in perfection and flawlessness of their construction, the performance aspect is going to be the differentiator.
Well,
right. So yeah.
But I believe, and I may be wrong, that people panic in the line at cosplay contests
Yeah.
when they're waiting, when they look around and they see other competitors and they're trying desperately to come up with something to make themselves better
Okay.
in the eyes of the crowd. Because I have seen, unfortunately, some truly cringeworthy performances that came from poor decisions or desperation at the last minute.
Like trying to throw something together at the last second when they're trying to.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it shows, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It just looks bad, and you can see it sometimes in the crowd's reaction. There's just like a little delay in the applause when they're done, when people are like,
Yeah.
or it feels awkward. It's my only advice is if you're going to do that sort of thing, it cannot be an impromptu decision.
You have to rehearse.
Yeah, and unless you're very, very, very good at ad-libbing, you need to plan it, you need to script it, and you need to rehearse it a lot.
Right.
More than you think.
So I also think that it's our responsibility as grown-ups in the cosplay community is to raise up new cosplayers or younger cosplayers and give them a platform to try things out and test things out.
I mean, I don't believe that they should be mocked
or
disparaged.
No, I know.
All I'm saying is think before you do this.
Absolutely.
You know, and that goes to everybody, from the youngest ones who are just getting into us, experienced ones. Because you can bite off more than you can chew. You can end up getting the music starting to play like they do at the Oscars because you overrun the small amount of time that you were allotted.
Sure.
Or they'll penalize you for it.
No, I think what I mean is that, you know, for so many of us, cosplay is this it's
an opportunity to get dressed up and get drunk.
Okay, so some people use the whole cosplay community as a place of comfort and solace. It's a place where they can go to feel safe.
I would agree.
In their nerdity or their fandom, to find other people who love the same things that we love, right? So I and maybe it's because of my age, maybe it's because I have kids of my own, but when I do see younger people that are in, like, they're performing, they're in their character, they're even maybe at a cosplay contest, trying out their performance, as rough as it can be, I think it's our responsibility to love and embrace them like they're our kids. Like, I mean, how many concerts do we go to with our children who played the best of Barney on a million different instruments, and it was agonizing on the ears, but we were like, yes, you did it. You walked up on stage. I look at these young people that are 15, 16 years old. They walk up on that stage fearless.
Yeah.
And they perform. They dance. They sing. They are in their character. They're giving monologues. And it is beautiful. Because that is a place, that means that they felt safe enough in that room to do something that they're probably not comfortable with. Or maybe it's the first time they felt comfortable.
From that comes the whole concept of, when do you offer advice?
So that's a good question. I believe that you don't offer advice unless somebody asks you for your advice.
But I have also made it probably a personal point to anybody that where we competitions where we have judged or where people are walking around. If people ask me advice, I will tell them, do you want actual advice or do you want me to blow smoke up your ass?
Well, there's a nicer way to say that. It's like,
no, not for me.
Okay, well, I mean, you are the
I am. I am the Lord Millicent.
You are actually Castigain. But yeah. So yeah, no, I think that there's a place. So if
the thing is if there's no point asking for advice unless you're willing to listen to it. And sometimes advice has to be harsh. It can be coached into, you know, you can put like inside at least a thin bag of velvet, but if it's spiky enough, it's going to hurt. You got two choices when that information comes to you, particularly if it comes from a source that you trust.
Right.
You can either get angry or you can listen and do something about it.
So I do think that if somebody asks for advice, if they come up to you, especially like, when you judge a cosplay contest, if somebody comes up to you and says, what advice can you give me to help me improve the next time? I do think it's disingenuous of you to not give good feedback.
Do you know what I love getting feedback from? Because I know that she won't bullshit me. Is Lindsay.
That's true. So Lily the Bunny, who is amazing, you should follow her on TikTok and everywhere. She's an incredibly talented cosplayer. She is an incredibly talented judge for cosplay
And
contests.
she can do everything that's annoying.
And she's really, she's good at all of the things. Which is also why I respect her as a judge.
Yep.
She has tried her hand at a lot of different things, and she will tell you, as much as she likes you, you're amazing. I love everything about you. Great. Can you give me some feedback on my costume? She'll be like, yes. This right here, this little thing that you did, there's a different way that you could do it that would improve. So she's never no matter how nice she is, she's going to tell you the truth. And that's what I asked for.
Well, the truth hurts sometimes.
Sometimes.
And I can understand why it upsets people, but if somebody says to you, if you want my advice, I'm going to tell you the truth.
Right.
If you don't think you can cope with that, then go, I don't think I'm ready to listen for that right now. Okay, cool. Walk away.
Right.
But if somebody says to you, I've got a few things to say to you, if you're willing to listen, you may not like what I have to say, but if you act on it, you're going to do better. If you decide to stay and listen, you don't get to be angry because somebody upset you and piss in your pond.
As long as the person offering advice is compassionate about it.
Yep.
I think that you always have to...
I tend to be a little blunt, I will admit.
I think that you should wrap it in kindness, because if somebody had come up to me...
That's because you're a mom.
No, because I'm not a piece of shit person.
What are you saying?
No offense. But because, if you think about it, we all come to this world from different places, right? So sometimes the person that comes up to me and says, hey, I really respect what you do. Can you give me some feedback on my costume? That could have been the most courageous thing that they had done that day.
Yeah, that's true.
And also, this could have been something that they had worked on for a year, and this truly, at this moment in time, is the best they are capable of doing.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a gentleness that I believe that we owe it to cosplayers that are growing, regardless. But then also, I think it's the responsibility of the person asking for the advice to help the communication. If I walk up to somebody like Lindsay and say, Lindsay, I respect your ability to do leather work. I tried my hand at leather work. I want you to be painfully critical of it. Tear it apart. I've given her the information that she needs to then positively give me feedback. So she's not going to hold back because I invited her not to.
I think maybe the way that I give advice about that sort of thing is it is biased by the way that I want my advice. I don't want a 20-minute lecture when you could do it in 2.
So that's something that I believe that you need to communicate to somebody if you're asking for their advice, to say, listen, you tell me in 2 minutes or less what I can do to improve, because I want you to be efficient with your feedback. I can take it, right? So one of the questions in the chat is, do you vary the harsh true dependent on their experience in cosplay? And the answer is yes. If somebody says, this is the first cosplay I've ever done. Oh my gosh, that is incredible. Can I just drink it in with my eyes? Can I look at every detail? I just really want to see what you've done. And then ask them the question, do you want advice? Or, girl, I'm just really excited to look at all the cool work that you did, and leave it at there. So
I think there's also, when you're giving advice, it should be pick 2 things.
Okay.
Only 2 things. If you could say, if you tweaked that and did this and did that, all that comes across is, oh my God, they hate my costume and everything's wrong with it.
Yeah, exactly.
So you pick the 2 worst things and say, this one, if you elevate that up to the rest.
Right. Yeah.
And you take this one and you tweak that sideways and bring that up as well. And here is how.
Yeah.
I think that has to be. You should get better at painting. Really, motherfucker?
What does that mean?
You
should get better at not being an asshole. How about that?
God.
You
You
all
know
right
what?
over
You
there?
know what I'm talking about, don't you? Up in Toronto,
No, but we are not going to mention names.
we're
Or
not. But a certain young lady friend of ours was told us earlier they should just get better.
oh, they should just get better.
Mm.
What does that mean? What does that mean? No, that is not a positive way to give feedback. But you know, we live in a world where people are good at certain things and not good at certain things. So we're just going to leave it at that. So yeah, I think that when you give feedback, it should be very much what that person needs from you and ask the question. It's okay to say, hey, look, and it comes back to the whole cosplay thing. I am arrogant as hell. I believe that I can be good at everything.
Yeah, and you're
which is
mostly
not true.
right, which is really
It's not
fucking
true.
annoying.
It is not true.
Really?
So-
Somebody write a book called How to Become the President of the United States and she'll be in 2024.
That's very, very sweet, but I don't want that level of scrutiny.
No, that's true. There's way too many skeletons in your closet.
True.
Yeah.
But when it comes to cosplay, I'm afraid to ask for feedback on my performance because it's so personal to me. Like I'm very vulnerable in that.
Well, the thing is,
because I don't think I'm good at it.
Yeah, you're vulnerable to criticism of that because you don't rate your own performance.
Because I don't think I'm good.
You'll take somebody's critique on your seamstress skills from another seamstress because you know that you're good at it.
Well, and it's also because I believe that I can get better. To me personally, like psychologically, the idea of not being able to do something is personally painful to me. Like it hurts. Like I can't learn languages and it bothers me so much.
You kill
it keeps
plants.
Me up at night. I can't grow a garden and I try every year.
You're such an apple polisher.
I'm such an apple polisher. So for me, if I were to ask for feedback on cosplay, like a performance, I would literally have to start it with, "Hi, I feel like I'm bad at this. So if you could give me just the gentlest of advice on maybe how to be a little bit better, but do know that if you're too harsh, I'm going to run away into a hole, into the fetal position, and cry for 6 months. Like that's just how I am. And I am 50 years old and I still feel like that. So I think that we owe it to everyone else in the cosplay community to be kind.
Yeah.
Just be kind.
You have to, what I believe, honest encouragement.
Yes, but only if people ask for. Like,
but only if it's asked for.
So
unsolicited advice is probably the worst thing you can do to people.
So funny story. I had this crazy idea that I was going to write a children's book recently. It was going to be very much based on me personally, and I showed my little concept art to my husband, and I said, "I'm going to show this to you, but bear in mind, I'm not asking for your feedback. I don't want you to tell me if it's good or bad because this is personal. This is my art. This is a representation of me. And if you don't like it, it's going to hurt me. So just tell me it's pretty. Like, just say, good job, honey, you finished it. That's all I need from you." Because
I am very fortunate as a husband that my wife communicates those things to me.
Oh yeah, I'm going to tell you every time.
It makes for a lot less arguments.
Well,
You don't set false expectations.
No, I will tell you exactly what I need from you.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, like, as we're having this conversation, I can feel myself making myself smaller. Like, I'm just, like the whole, like, idea of, like, performance and sharing my art and my vulnerabilities, I feel myself, like hiding.
I do wonder, I mean, you yourself have said that, tonight, I think, that these young people, especially who are introverts, who are nerdy, who are not normally strong personalities in public, they put on a costume and it allows them to be something that they aren't on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
And that, if that brings them joy, if that brings them strength, that needs to be encouraged absolutely as much as possible.
Absolutely.
But I don't think they should be lied to.
No.
I mean, I don't think you should be saying to somebody, "Oh my God, this is absolutely fantastic," when it's not.
You can. I believe that you can always find something.
But you can praise without being specific or without going over the top.
Absolutely.
You can encourage without giving them delusions.
Yes, absolutely agree with you. Totally on that. So yeah, I mean, like everything else in the world, especially at this at this time of year.
God, you can tell we're Gen X and we're not fan of participation trophies.
But we were the ones giving them out, just FYI.
Well, that's because we were ignored.
I do need to, like, this is 100% off topic, but let's talk about the whole participation trophy things. Because Gen X were, like, not liked by our parents very much.
We were feral.
They loved us, but they didn't like us, or they kicked us out the door.
Wasn't convinced my parents loved me at all.
My parents loved me. I was adorable. I don't know about you.
Yeah, well, I was a little shit, so there you go.
But remember that we gave the kids participation trophies because we thought our parents hated us. So we broke the millennials. Our apologies. I still think millennials are great. But anyway, back on topic of cosplay. I do also feel like a lot of the younger people in cosplay are my children. And I think it's our responsibility to protect them and encourage them and give them a safe place where they can. I think about it. If there was a cosplay community when I was a teenager, I don't think I would have been as sad. Like, I just think that I would have had this place to, like, be embraced by others.
Yeah.
Right? We didn't have that.
Well, what was that weird group that you were a part of in high school?
Which one? I made up 3.
I know there was all the bulletin board groups, but there was the rah-rah group.
The Pet Club?
Is that it? Is that what
we created the Deadbeat Club based off of the B-52 song.
No, but you're talking about the Pep Club, the ones that were like, that was like your little way of just getting involved and being happy. And
was it, or was it just a place to go because we didn't have cons? Like,
oh, yeah.
Like, let me tell you something. If I had a convention to go to when I was 16, when I could have made a costume and just gone and be with other nerds, like, that was the dream. And now we have this big community where we can all get together and celebrate it. And independent of generation, independent of gender identity, all of these people get together. And I'm going to bring it full circle back to this grand narrative that we went to. This was a community that treated me really badly 15 years ago.
Yes, they did.
Right? Like, I was terrified to get back into it. And to be able to come back to that community, I have pictures, and I'll share them on social media, of at the end standing with my interloper faction, and we were cheering, we were like smiling for pictures. I never thought I would find that in the 40K community.
Yeah.
Did not think it would happen. And it was because I got really into cosplay. It was amazing.
And as 40K cosplayers, really excited about Henry Cavill.
To bring it back completely full circle.
That's because that's where we're going to end. Because you just know that when that series comes out, all of a sudden we're going to be real popular.
Now, I will, to be fair, I may have tried to put this out on Twitter and say, if they're looking for anybody to be on the costuming team, I would be very happy to take Henry Cavill's measurements. Sorry.
You know what? I wouldn't mind taking Henry Cavill's measurements, to be brutally honest.
He's just so pretty.
And lovely.
I know, he does seem super, super sweet. So if anybody out there in the universe could possibly, like, literally,
or if he wants somebody to make him a set of Custodes armor, I'll do it cheap.
Will you though? I mean, I'm sorry. He's got Hollywood money. We're not going to do it.
Yeah, no, he's going to get somebody to make it properly out of fiberglass.
Oh, that's
I wouldn't
really
want a
heavy.
suit. I wouldn't want a suit of armor made out of fiberglass or even vac formed plastic.
I know. Anyway, not that we put a million hours of thought into this, by the way. So just real quickly, there's a couple of comments that have been coming through, and Matt, my favorite one is, I think everyone would love to take his measurements. Dude, for real. Like, if anything, it'd be like, how big are your arms? Like, that's crazy.
How big are you? How big are your arms?
Yeah. So another one, as a millennial raised by a pair of boomers. My parents were boomers. Actually, my parents were kind of not like everyone else's parents. My mother was like very hands-on. She encouraged me to be like part of adult conversations. She was not the typical boomer, which is why I seriously think I am the way that I am. Like, I don't have that sort of, I'm disaffected. Like, we were all disaffected Gen Xers, but I wasn't
whereas
feral.
my mum and dad were atypical. I mean, dad worked hard, came home, had his comfy chair and his big piece of chicken, and ignored us. Mum basically ran us with an iron rod so that we didn't break stuff inside of the house, and spent most of her time shooing us out of the house.
Well, I mean,
and then we lived and died by the streetlight.
but you were literally like, it's amazing that you're here with us. It's amazing that you're alive because
Or
you,
not
like,
in prison.
blew stuff up. Like, you were
Yep.
a danger.
Yep.
So just for 2 data points, my mom being nice to me maybe worked out. Like, I probably didn't blow anything up when I was a kid. Just saying.
No, blowing up shit's fun.
Truth. So another comment, I'm 40. When I was young, if you were geeky, you got a kicking. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's why I do have some hope, because it was the same for me. Like, I was a nerdy kid in school and I was tortured. Watch any John Hughes movie from the 80s. I was Ali Sheedy in The Breakfast Club with the this and the this, right? And we were tortured. Like, it was brutal.
I mean, with the onset of the Avatar movie, fucking the MCU, Star Wars, being nerdy and being geeky has become, for want of a better expression, more mainstream.
Yeah.
It's okay to like those things, even if you aren't a super fan of them. And the only way for those niche products to become as popular as they are is the writers and the developers have to shape and change the plot, the script, and the appearance so that it will appeal to more than the small number of people that already like it.
Right.
I mean, a typical example is the Halo series on Paramount Plus.
Mm-hmm.
They did a couple of things that made me go, all right. I mean, the fact that they had the Master Chief taking his helmet off, no, don't.
Did that hurt you?
Yeah, it's like the difference between Stallone's Dread and Carl Urban's Dread.
Oh, that's a good point.
All right.
Yeah.
They had the Master Chief banging some chick that was a traitor. No, that's just not necessary. But a lot of the other stuff was reasonably close to the lore. And the juicy bits that everybody really wanted to see, which was the combat sequences, were fucking spot on.
Mm-hmm.
But they had to make a show that cost that much money. It had to appeal to more than the people that play Halo. The Rings of Power is another one. They were limited on the lore that was available to them.
Most people don't know that, by the way.
Yeah, they had access to the Hobbit, the 3 Lord of the Rings books, Return of the King, Two Towers, and the Fellowship of the Ring, and the information in the appendices that was in the front and the back of those 4 books. They weren't allowed to use any of the other established lore from Unfinished Tales, the Silmarillion, blah 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 blah. So they had to try and sail as close to it as they could, because they knew what the lore was enough so that they couldn't copy it and get into trouble for using lore that they weren't entitled to. But they also had to change other things in the look of it to make it appeal to a broader audience. Right. And it's going to be the same with the 40K live action.
So it's interesting that you should say that, because, and first of all, you cannot please all the people all the time, especially in 40K, and especially nerds, because we are so connected with the fandom. Like, and this, again, comes back to the whole cosplay thing. What makes cosplay so cool is we have this fervent love for source material, whatever it is.
And performance is based on source material.
It is based on source material, right? So we're talking about Warhammer. We've talked about Halo. We've talked about Lord of the Rings, all these different things. I get this fevered about Parks and Recreation. Mm-hmm. Like, I get this fevered about Bob's Burgers. Like, we all have our fandoms that we want to know every single tiny little bit about. And when I got the chance to dress up as Linda Belcher and go to a con, now that I think of it, it was the only time that I cosplay without anybody asking me to do it.
Boston accent, waving at people at random on the street.
I put on the glasses and the hair and the red shirt and the yellow sneakers. I'm walking through Atlanta going, oh my God, it's you. I love you. You look so good. I'm like, holy crap, I'm cosplaying. Like, so it's when you love those characters as much as you do, the play comes so naturally. And the fact that we have this community that encourages it and embraces it, that's freaking cool.
But practice.
If you're competing.
Yes.
If you're just walking around a con and you want to be a character,
do you know what? I
yeah.
I still think. I mean, if you want to go to a con and you want to throw yourself into it, yeah, learn a few lines, practice in front of a mirror, because I think that will also give you one other thing. If you feel that you've practiced, you'll gain more confidence. Do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. No, of course. Absolutely. Absolutely. But also, so isn't the con in a lot of ways like a test bed for that too?
It is, but there's no reason why you can't practice a little bit before. If an engineer's building a plane, they run it through some other stuff before they stick it on the test bed
Oh,
or
fun
fly
fact. Somebody told me that most structural engineers guess their computations, and I threw up a little bit in my mouth.
Yeah, why not
So,
more? Well,
maybe not.
They must be pretty good at guessing because a lot of the buildings don't fall down.
Maybe not. So maybe that's not a good thing. But I will tell you. So personally, I do a lot of public speaking as part of my day job. I never practice my speeches ever. So when I was asked to like rehearse my stuff, I was like, I don't want to do. I don't have to do that. Like it's not who I am. But I realized that the only time I can do that is when I know the source material really well.
Yeah, that's why you can do that. Is because you have done a million of those speeches, a million of those presentations, a million of those meetings. You're basically repeating the same speech that's been cut and pasted, regurgitated, and made current.
I think you're really discounting how good I am at my job.
Because you've narrowed it down to a good thing that works.
Well, and in that way, I have actually practiced it over
and over
many
over
years.
and over
That's
again.
Fair. That's a good point. That's a good point. But I also like people who like run through their presentations in advance. I'm not that person. Like I've never been that person. I run through the world like I'm a stand-up comedian and like every opportunity is my audience. That's really what it is because I try out new material every time. It's like, oh, that didn't work. All right, I'm just gonna do something different the next time. Like
See, whereas I repeat my lines over and over and over and over again. I mean, when I thought that we were actually going to get time to do a small skit at Toronto for the fans, because they were talking about giving the finalists for the North American group like 60 seconds each.
Yeah.
I had a skit. I had and I was practicing it, and then they said, "Oh yeah, no, we're not getting that." I was like, "Ah, fuck."
So funny story. When they told you that we're going to get like 60 seconds to do a thing, you started like concocting in your head what that performance was going to be like. I was trying to figure out how I could break my own leg and not have to go.
But would you know?
It depends on the character. It literally depends on what the character is. Maybe more so, but also think about it. Like at the grand narrative, like I feel like it took me a good 24 hours to really like get into it.
Because you also got the response that you needed from your crowd.
Oh, they were so awesome. Like so amazing. So amazing. Yeah, they were very, 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 but I was also kind of feeling stuff out. Like as I got there, I was throwing out some stuff and what was working. I'm like, oh, okay, like that worked. I'm going to go do that again over here. I'm going to use that same tone or that same concept. It was a little hilarious at the end when they got an Eldari to just start yelling WOG at like everything. So when I realized that went over well, I'm like, oh, we're going to yell WOG at all the things. It's going to make sense. A couple of comments here. Why I love cosplaying because he's my inner voice at work. At a con, it's okay and funny character. That is a great point.
Absolutely.
That is a great point.
You can do stuff in character at a con that they won't let you do in the real world because the real world sucks balls.
That's right. I mean, that was me being Linda Belcher. It's like, there's no way I could act like that. I mean, now my job.
Think about how I treated that lad on the first morning at the Grand Narrative. God, that was funny. I just finished giving everybody their initial briefing that we were actually going to do Take and Hold, and we were actually doing Abhor the Witch. That was our main faction commitments, and then everybody was by battle group had their rooms or their drop zones assigned to them, and some young lad. I say young lad. Early 20s.
Yeah, I was going to say he was 42.
Now, bear in mind, okay, that I am in full Imperial Lord Militant's costume with a peaked cap that had been slashed, so that instead of the peak looking like this, it was sat on the peak of my nose, covering my eyes and forcing me to put my head back so that I could see anything.
You were very scary.
He then goes, I don't know where the iron waists are. I take 2 paces like I teleported.
By the way,
right up.
Can I just say real quickly? It was completely a reasonable thing for him to ask because it was the first day. No one knew where anything was.
But I was in character.
And you were in character, and he was just starting to get a vibe because, like, it was the first day. So his response was reasonable.
So I, like, teleported it in front of him, and in my best British Sergeant Major's voice, just sort of, like, looked down at him and went, do you need me to teach you how to wipe your ass as well? And he was like, what? I went, do you want me to teach you how to wipe your ass?
That was him.
And he, no. And I said, I can't believe that one of my commanders can't locate his own fucking drop zone. Fuck off out of my sight.
Wow.
And he scurried off. Wow. And I looked around, and his 4 mates had, like, separated away from him. Like that. And we're laughing.
But didn't it also,
I went and found him later.
I know you did. I know. But what was so funny is that it did kind of, like, set the tone for it. Is like, you're in character, and it was off-putting at first. The kid was like, I just asked where the room was, and everybody was like, dude, this is the reason we're here, is to have those experiences. By the next morning, when the Imperium did not do well their first day.
No, we didn't.
And at the evening faction briefing, he brought all this stuff together, and basically Fred
you're skipping an event.
Oh, wait, what happened?
Remember, we lost day 1.
That's right.
So,
wasn't that the I'm not...
Oh, no, that's when I did my I'm not angry, I'm disappointed speech.
I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. And they were all like, shit, he's already disappointed in us.
And I paused and made them, like, start listening. And I wouldn't raise my voice. So in order to hear me, they were kind of, like, shuffling forward in the room to try and get into it. And then the following morning, it was a case of, right, yesterday's done. I then took him to the shrine room where there was an Imperial shrine with a bolter, with candles, and an Imperial priest who was fantastic.
So cool.
I had them in ranks, kneeling down, receiving blessings from an Imperial priest, reciting their loyalty to the God Emperor, and then sent them out of the room cheering.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's videos of it. Okay, the video was amazing because each room was, again, themed, like, with music, with incense, with candles, like the whole thing. And the guy who was running that particular shrine was another, I don't know if he'd call himself a cosplayer, but he was incredible. He was doing prayers. When you were doing your speech, the music that was just naturally playing in the background was crescendoing behind you. I'm like, this is like out of Hollywood. It was amazing.
You know, they're running out of the room, sort of yelling out, only in death does duty end! Only in death does duty end! It's fucking fabulous. That was like bucket list. Tick.
Check. And I would like to think it was also a bucket list for some of the people who attended as well.
I hope so.
Like that was the plan, right? It was just to, like, be immersive. So there was a comment here. It said, Fred really made my friend's day on the second day when he walked up to Fred and asked if he could go fight on the Space Hulk for Kill Team.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That, like, those were the memories. Like, as much fun as we hoped that the attendees had, you guys also made it incredibly memorable for us. Like, we'll be talking about this event forever.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it was cool. So the priest in the shrine, his real name is Bogo. I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but apparently he's like this, like, high level attorney for the U.S. government. Like, and he just does this for fun. And I was like, dude.
What, you don't think there's engineers and lawyers that are cosplayers out there?
Oh, no. We know engineers and lawyers who are cosplayers out there. Like, absolutely. Hell, I run an environmental nonprofit. Like, this is, like, this. I always love those little things that they do at cons where they go through and you have to hold up a whiteboard with what you do for your day job.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Like, law enforcement officer, military, whatever.
Bomb disposal expert.
Right? But then there's like me, I run a nonprofit. My friend Heather is a photographer. Her husband is an attorney. And at one point, the four of us were dressed up as the Belcher family.
Yeah.
The attorney, by the way, was dressed up as Tina Belcher in the socks, in the skirt.
Twerking his butt.
He twerked the entire time. It was incredible.
He's worn a dress a lot.
He wore a dress 3 times that con. I don't know.
That
if it was
con,
planned,
yeah.
Just that con, he wore a dress. Because he did the Joker in the nurse's costume.
Yeah.
He did Linda Belcher. And I feel like there was a third one that was like...
He borrowed Heather's Wonder Woman dress.
That's right, it was Wonder Woman. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, if nothing else, so we're going to wrap this up soon. I think this is probably the longest live stream we've ever done. And by the way, thank you all for being with us. Sometimes we feel like we are speaking to the void. So the fact that you are here with us, bless you. We're so appreciative.
If anything, I don't think of this as a podcast as a live stream. I think of this as a funny conversation I get to have with my wife again, and you get to listen. So
yeah, I mean, not to get schmaltzy, but I've had a whole glass of wine and Fred's had a cider, so we're a little bit like we actually really, really like each other. The fact that we get to cosplay together and do this stuff is kind of amazing. So if you can find someone in your life to be as nerdy as you are with you, swipe that person up. Just nerd out together. On that note, thank you all.
Merry Crimble, Happy Hanukkah, whatever.
Merry Crisis. Merry Christmas. Merry Chrysler. We won't see you next week because we are going to be Christmas daying
with our friends and stuffing our face with seafood because screw turkey.
Yeah, and also the week after we're going to be camping, so maybe we might do another feature on another night and then just record it and throw it out on the podcast. By the way, if you're not able to join us on Sunday nights at 7:00, we actually upload this to Spotify
on YouTube.
And it's on YouTube, it's on Twitch, all that stuff. But if you just want to listen to it in your car, we convert this into a podcast. You can go back and listen to all of our other Fred and Elle Talk Shop episodes as well on Spotify. Just look up Fred and Elle Talk Shop. It's also on our website at Fred and Elle Designs. So FredandElle Designs.com. And you can listen to us on Apple.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe if you would, because we really, really love that. So everyone have a wonderful holiday, and we will see you again.